agree to spend that amount of money. But I think it's important to have this in our financial model.
Yes, David?
So, to the point that was just made, is there a way we can footnote this and include it in the capital plan? The objection I have is, we all know, we don't know what the number is going to be. Fair enough, no debate for me. But to exclude a significant project from the capital planning numbers will then skew the decisions we make relating to capital tax levy, financing decisions as far as amortization, schedules of debt, and so forth. So I would ask if we were to add an amendment to this and say, okay, delete it from the...
I'm sorry, we don't have amendments to amendments.
No. Then if you, as the motion maker, were to agree to alter your, I would support it if it were altered to address the point that I'm making, which I think you agree with. I hope you agree with the point I'm making.
No, I'm sorry, I don't agree to that. I think, we get a feasibility study up and running, and by the time we're looking at a capital plan again in a year, hopefully we will have some more information. Leslie Tarkington?
So I agree that, it's not wise to signal something in advance with having zero information. We do know that we have a queue for schools. I think we, all supporting the vestibule project, which hopefully is going to be done sometime soon.
August, September.
And then, Central Middle School and Old Greenwich School. I think it's premature to add these additional amounts. The other thing that I think we need to make sure that in addition to this amount that's in the budget for this year, last year we approved, Roland, I was just looking for the number, I believe it was $811,000 for vertical transportation, ADA address, ADA issues and vertical transportation for the Riverside schools, I remember too. So I just want to add that in addition to doing this feasibility study, there already were approved amounts in the current fiscal year budget for measures for the Riverside School.
Mr. Deschamps, please.
Does, at least in my mind, is highlight the need for this board to take a close look at our capital budgeting process and evaluate that post the budget process that we're engaged in now. It's clear to me anyway that what we're undertaking here, this is the second time this has happened, but first was Greenwich High School where we agreed to, or the board agreed to take out all these out-year expenditures. We're doing that here now. It's not conducive to having a more accurate capital budget. You're implying that a zero is more accurate than 48 million. And we just approved Old Greenwich School at 43 million. So to me, it's not an unreasonable number. We don't know what the exact number is, but that's what budgeting is about. I mean, there's a lot of numbers in the capital budget now that we don't have an accurate number on that we need to update. That's part of the process I'm referring to. I think we need to look at the capital budgeting process, decide when we put something in there and make sure we're marking those projects appropriately so we can plan. I mean, we have to plan. It was mentioned before in budget committee meetings that, we have a cliff that we're dealing with. And we can't make more accurate decisions with less accurate numbers in the capital budget. And this doesn't help in that regard.
Did you want to say something, Karen? No. Any other, Nisha, you have another comment?
Yeah, I think there's two separate discussions going
Yeah,
on.
bring it really
Closer.
close to you.
There are two
you
separate
go.
discussions going on here. One is, this committee's support for Riverside, and that's, I hope, very clear to everybody. We support this project. The second is the financing and how we go about it. And I think the issues we're mentioning are real in terms of planning, and I'm looking at the model and seeing what the sensitivity of that model is to, for example, a number like 48 versus 45. And to Mr. Deschamps' point, is zero really a better estimate than 48? And I agree, no, it's not. But perhaps we need a formula, per se, or perhaps we can think about not including things in the model until the feasibility, at the very minimum, is completed, knowing that, there is going to be 1 or 2 years of maybe us playing catch-up. But I don't think, I'll give you examples of CMS, OGS, and, even Riverside. If you look at the KG&D study from, I think, 2017, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and you look at the estimates of these projects, they're precisely where they ended up 8 years later. So I think the signaling piece is not a small piece, right? It is a really important part of budgeting, as to speak. And I always say, think of public money as if it were your money. Would you want ever to send this signal? And I certainly would not. That doesn't mean we want to lowball estimates or we want to put zero in. But I think there is a compromise somewhere in the middle to how to deal with the issue of the model versus actually approving the project itself. So my suggestion here, from just thinking off Mr. Deschamps' point, which I think is a very strong one, that 0 is not a good number either. But maybe we think about this as a 1-year problem. And then next year, the model catches up for Riverside and so forth on some of our other projects that are further down. So I hope there is support for at least the signaling piece of it, but I think it's extremely important to not put a number in there. It's very possible we come back with Riverside and say, we learn from OGS perhaps, and we decide maybe we don't want to do a full-blown renovation of the older pieces, but we really want to expand. And the expansion piece is a very different economics than a renovation of an older building, which has a lot of different challenges. Often renovations cost more than a new piece. So I hope some of my colleagues across the aisle really consider supporting this, because it should not look like this is a partisan split between our thought process, because I really do think we're all on the same page on this one, especially.
Okay, I have one more hand and hopefully a very quick comment from Ms. Tarkington.
So I wanted to say, I don't.
You're not on.
No,
It's on.
there you go.
Yeah.
So I want to say here that, it's unclear to me where this number for $48 million came up. If you look at last year's budget, there was $150,000 in this year's budget for 25 for feasibility. There was $1.5 million for A&E in 27, and in 29 there was $15 million. So that's 16.5, which suddenly has moved to 48 without any definition and no clarification of what's happened here. So, there are these issues when you talk about planning, and Matt, I certainly believe in long-range planning, but, we need a better plan and numbers, and we're finding that the budgets change before they come to Budget Committee with kind of numbers without any supporting information, and that's exactly what happened on Old Greenwich School, too. So I think we're all trying to work together. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can move to a vote. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Olczak,
I'm opposed, no.
Champ,
No.
Aurora,
Yes.
Selps,
No.
Vasiliotis is a yes. Fisher,
Yes.
Tarkington,
Yes.
Moriarty,
No.
Weisbrod,
No.
Jansen,
Yes.
Kolb,
Abstain.
and Alfano.
Yes.
So that's 6-5-1.
651.
So that passes, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Continuing on, schools roofs, schools 680 security entry redesign, schools 680 stage renovation, schools 680 stairs, ramps, and walls, schools 680 vertical transportation, schools 680 windows and doors, schools 680 Western Middle School soil remediation, school 680 Hamilton Avenue parking garage, and something else, schools 680 playground replacement, libraries, going on to libraries, library 701 COSCOP renovations, library 701 elevator upgrades, library 701 HVAC equipment, library 701 plumbing repairs, library 710 drainage and parking lot resurfacing. Parks and Rec 822 park equipment.
Yep. I have a motion here to delete $45,000 for one item. Seconded by Mr. Alfano. I would note that in the fiscal '24 for '25, the indication was that this item would only be $40,000, not the item itself, but the object code, versus the $200,000 that appeared in the budget. So we're going to defer some of the equipment until the following year. So I would ask for approval of a motion to delete $45,000.
Was there a second?
Yes, David
Okay,
Alfano
thank you.
seconded.
Okay.
Any discussion on the item?
Yeah.
David?
Question for Mr. Alfano. As seconder, did you talk to Parks and Rec about this?
Harry did, yes.
Oh, okay, Harry? Did
No,
you-
I did not talk to Parks and Rec about this.
Okay, so this is a motion to delete without talking to the department. Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion? Would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Alfano,
Yes.
Cobb,
No.
Jansen,
Yes.
Weisbrod,
No,
Moriarty,
No.
Tarkington,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Vassilios, yes, Salps,
no.
Aurora,
Yes.
DeChamp,
No.
Alcheck,
No.
6-6,
And I will break the tie and make it 7-0 in favor of the
Seven-
deletion.
7-6.
7-6, sorry.
Okay. 7-6. Tiebreak. Okay, moving on. Parks and Recs, 822, Playground Replacement Program. Parks and Rec, 822, Eastern Greenwich Civic Center Pickleball Ball Court, and we dare not cut that for Lucia. Parks and Rec, 822, Field Master Plan Design and Implement, Parks and Rec, 822, Coscob Netting and Fencing Replacement, Parks and Rec, 822, Park Improvement Program, Parks and Rec, 822, Pomerantz Tuckman Master Plan and Improvement, Implementation, Parks and Rec, 829, Tree Risk Program, Parks and Rec, 833, Repower Ferry Boats, Parks and Rec, 833, Ferry Dock Piles and Storm Ties, Parks and Rec, 834, Dredge Greenwich Point Cove Channel, Parks and Rec, 834, Marina Replacement Program. On to fixed charges, 950, bond ban acquisition and interest.
Hold on a second.
Roland, that gets recalculated. When will we know that number? Okay, so I don't think we've finished capital yet because don't we have the funds, but anyway.
Okay, well, we can defer this. Parking service, we're on to parking services. 219, vehicles, 2 compact SUVs. Parking services, 219, MSM upgrade replacement program. Parking services, 219, parking facility improvement plan. Parking service, 219, town hall garage rehab. Now on to Nathaniel Witherall. Nathaniel Witherall, 450, water main inside pit to the street.
Yes, Mr. Selps?
I apologize to my colleagues for not sending something around on this earlier, but I would actually like to move to delete the 450 from this budget. I mean, the 225 from this budget, and then let me explain why, the basis for my motion. I guess I need a seconder for this, however.
I'll second.
Okay. I spoke with, earlier this week, I spoke with Mr. Markowitz, the chairman of the Nathaniel Witherall Board. His view is that 3 of the capital projects that are currently being requested are in fact urgent. However, what he told me was, and my colleague Mr. Alfano was on the call, he told me that he did not have confidence in the numbers that were applicable to this project and a couple more that we'll come to in just a moment. And what I said to him at the time was, you cannot ask the Board of Estimate and Taxation to approve a capital project when the requesting agency doesn't have confidence in the numbers. What I said to him was, you go back, do whatever work you've got to do to justify this and come back with a hard number vetted by, whether it's an engineer or a construction company, And I said, if you believe that it's urgent, you can ask for this as an interim item. But I said it's not fair to this board, and I certainly can't support appropriating capital for a project where you can't look me in the face and tell me this is a legit number. And Mr. Markowitz said that was a perfectly acceptable result for him. So that's the basis for the amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Tarkenton.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say that I moved this to, I moved it too quickly. I'd like to ask Mr. Alfano if he'd rather be the second on this. I didn't mean to step in front of him.
Okay, any other discussion? I would just like to note that this is where our liaisons to Nathaniel Witherell, Mr. Selfs, and Mr. Rafano have done a good job, and the system works. So, is there any objection to unanimous consent? No. Hearing none, is there any objection to the motion as presented by Mr. Selfs to delete the entire 225? Hearing none, this is approved 12-0-0.
Okay. Continuing on, Nathaniel Witherell, 450, wire upgrade. Nathaniel Witherell, 450, ceiling replacement in residence rooms.
Yes. In regard to the ceiling replacement, I think we've also been advised that the Nathaniel Witherell, well, let me make the motion to delete this item in total, please. Could I have a second?
Second.
From Mr. Alfano. We've heard that Nathaniel Witherell wants to refurbish the rooms. I think this ceiling replacement ought to be deferred until they come forward with a well-developed and planned project to refurbish the rooms. With that, any discussion, please? Mr. Selfs?
Chairman, I've also had discussions with Mr. Markowitz about the project that the Nathaniel Witherell refers to as the room refresh. The board of Nathaniel Witherell is working with the sort of newly revived Friends of Nathaniel Witherell, and they're working on developing a project and a program and a budget that they would bring before this board. Well, first they bring it before the Nathaniel Witherell board, but then to this board. And I agree with your approach, which is it's not prudent to approve this in the absence of a comprehensive view of the room refresh program that the Nathaniel Witherell would like to pursue. So I am an enthusiastic supporter of your motion.
Thank you. Any other comments? Ms. Moriarty?
I just want to ask the question because I don't know if we have this information, but when we met with Nathaniel Witherell regarding this particular project, they talked about not being able to find replacement ceiling tiles because they are no longer manufactured, and some of them, I don't know how many, but are water stained, and there are things going on above in the ceiling. So I'm concerned about the overlap in timing, and I don't know if Stephen and David have information that would alleviate that concern. That would be helpful.
I think my answer would be that they, are making a decision to put a drop ceiling in the rooms to replace the tile, and that really ought to be, as Stephen and I have outlined, really part of their, plan for the rooms. Anybody else?
12-0-0.
Is there any objection to a unanimous consent?
No.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm
We'll
gonna
take a record vote, please.
Okay, all check.
I abstain.
DeChamp? Yes. Aurora? Yes. Selps? Yes. Vasiliotis is a yes. Fisher?
Yes.
Tarkington?
Yes.
Moriarty?
Abstain.
Weisbrod?
Yes.
Jansen?
Yes.
Kalb?
Yes.
Alfano?
Yes.
It's 10-0-2.
10-0-2 is correct.
Motion passes. Okay, let me just write that down for a minute. Moriarty and I'll check. Okay, continuing on. Ceiling. Nathaniel Witherell, hold on, lost my place here. Okay, sorry, Nathaniel Witherell, 450 galvanized pipe replacement.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to make this subject to release upon receipt of an engineer's report documenting the condition and listing associated priorities and a replacement plan. Do I hear a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Alfano. I think this goes along with the discussion we've already had about confidence in numbers. I would leave in $96,000 and subject to release, that they come back to us with greater confidence. They do have some issues that need to be addressed that give concern about mold. This may be more of a higher priority, but we need to hear back from them with some more confidence. Any other discussion? Mr. Selps?
This is another one of the projects, Mr. Chairman, that I spoke about with Mr. Markowitz earlier in the week, and as I said, Mr. Alfano was part of that conversation. This project in particular was one that Mr. Markowitz and Mr. Kelly, who is the chair of the Finance Committee at the Nathaniel Witherell, indicated that they had zero confidence in this number. So I'm perfectly prepared to support your motion to put it subject to a condition, but I would note the same caution for this, which is, Mr. Markowitz, both Mr. Markowitz and Mr. Kelly said they have no confidence in this number, and they think they couldn't tell me whether it would be a bigger number or a smaller number. I will say, however, that Mr. Kelly and Mr. Markowitz also said that they view this as quite an urgent request, and I said, go do your homework, bring something back to the BET that we could vote on. Mr. Kelly, who has run a number of larger hospitals in the New York metropolitan area, said this kind of thing can lead to catastrophic failures. So I would say that this is probably their most urgent request for capital, but it doesn't, it should not and does not, replace the need for coming back to us with adequate numbers. So that's, I mostly wanted to make this as an update to my colleagues because we haven't had a regular BET meeting, so we haven't had an opportunity to submit a progress report. But that's what Mr. Alfano and I learned from Mr. Markowitz earlier this week.
Thank you. Ms. Tarkenton?
May I,
And then,
yes, Mr. Chair, may I, through you, ask Mr. Alfano a question?
yeah, sure.
David, do you think this should be a condition, or should this be a delete? Can you give us any comment?
No, this should be a condition. It's going to happen, and Mr. Markowitz was good enough to tell us that he is going to come to us for an interim, and that's part of the understanding. So, not a condition.
So, but when you say an interim.
I mean, not a delete, I'm sorry, a condition.
But when you say an interim, would, that be in this fiscal year '24? So therefore, that would lead me to believe that there should be a delete.
Yeah.
And
have
if
to come
it's
back
an
anyway.
interim, because otherwise we're, back to Mr. Deschamps' point, we're double counting. So if we're looking for this additional information, as Mr. Stubbs said,
You do the mic.
oh, I'm sorry. If we're looking for this additional information, I would suggest this should be a delete and not a condition. And you agree?
I would concur with that, and I would ask if Mr. Fisher and Mr. Alfano would be willing to withdraw their motion and repeat the motion with a motion to delete.
I would.
All right. Seems we have the support, so I will withdraw the original motion, make a motion that the $96,000 for galvanized pipe replacement be deleted from the budget.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Alfano. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm going to support the motion, but I would point out that likely what's going to come back from Nathaniel Witherell is the acceleration of this into 1 year's, one year request. So, but I support the motion for the reasons that we've all discussed. So but be prepared to see a number much larger than 96 because they're going to probably want to expand to accelerate the program.
Karen?
Yeah, I mean, I am also supporting this only because we don't really have the numbers, and they are going to have to come back anyway, as Ms. Tarkington said. So, the numbers will be what they will be, but at least we will have real numbers at that point.
Any further discussion? Any objection to unanimous consent? Is there any objection to approving this 1200? Hearing none, this is approved 1200 to fully delete the item for $96,000 galvanized pipe replacement.
Continuing on, Nathaniel Witherell, 450 roof replacement program. Nathaniel Witherell, 450 tower sewer drain relining.
I think that's 225,000.
I didn't,
Yeah, 225.
225.
That's what's on my.
I didn't,
Tower drain?
all I said was 450 tower sewer drain relining.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't mention the price, I don't think.
Okay. I
Unless
have
I'm
a,
hallucinating.
I have a motion here which is in keeping with all of our previous discussion to delete
And you need a second.
this item. Do I have a
Second.
second? Seconded by Mr. Alfano.
Could have had Phelps.
Is there any further discussion? I think it's clear we're doing this for the same reason.
You don't want to
Seeing no further discussion? Any objection to unanimous consent? No. Hearing none, do we have, is there any objection to adopting the motion to delete 225,000 from 450? Hearing none, there is a 1200 approval to delete the item. Thank you.
Continuing on, Public Works, sewer maintenance, Public Works, Coscob Pump Station, Public Works, 361, Grass Island, WWTP Asset Management, Public Works, 999, bond ban, well, again, I think we're going to have to come back to that,
We'll have to
or?
come back to
Roland,
that, I think.
Or is this the,
Or will this be the same, Roland, because we haven't, we aren't making any changes here. Won't it remain the same?
okay,
So I
so,
think-
Public Works, 999, bond ban acquisition and interest. Moving on to the Griff Golf Course, 824, cart path renovations. The Griff, 824, irrigation system. The Griff, 824, landscaping and turf equipment. Griff, 824, master plan projects update. Griff, 824, bunker rehabilitation program. Griff, 824, driving range drainage improvements. Boy, that golf course is going to be ready. School lunch, 680, school kitchen equipment replacement. School lunch, 680, fleet, 4300, reefer. And that finishes your capital.
So it sounds like school lunch.
Yeah.
Okay, I see lunch has arrived.
We have two other, oh, we do it, those, okay,
sorry,
sorry, I defer.
He made a mistake.
You made a mistake, okay. All right, so we're going to take a lunch break. Let's make every effort to be back here by 1 o'clock, since we've chewed up so much other time. Thank you.
And before we get started, I just wanted to apologize to everybody in the room for my outburst earlier, but as you can tell, I am very, very passionate about the budget, and I know the impact we have on people's lives, and that's what prompted my outburst. So thank you for tolerating me.
Thank you. Scott, we have everybody here.
No pressure. That's when we have to get out of here. I have the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. We're coming back after lunch and caucus, and we're going to proceed with the operating budget. So if Ms. Vasiliotis will start us off again, please.
101, Representative Town Meeting. 102, Ethics. 103, Historical District Commission. 104, Emergency Operations. 105, Office of the First Selectman. You're up.
Who's on this one?
You are.
Sorry. The office of the, is this on? Yeah. In the office of First Selectman, I move that we cut $117,988 for the Sustainability Coordinator in line number 105.
Second.
Seconded by Karen.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to condition in this position.
We
I think we
can't have a motion on top of a motion.
Matt, my recommendation is as the discussion on this item is on the floor, you indicate what the alternative approach would be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Excuse me, let me just
Roland? That's what you gave me, Roland, but okay. I'm sorry?
88019. Okay. So I amend my motion with the consent of Karen to a cut of
Yes.
88,019. The position requested would report to the office of the first selectman, which is not consistent with the town's table of organization. The position is not clearly defined, as evidenced by the discussion, many discussions, I'll point out, in the BET Human Resources Committee, in which each committee member had a different idea of what this position's job responsibilities would entail. Benchmarking shows very few towns currently have this type of position. I recognize Ms. Vasiliotis to speak, please.
Yes, I just wanted to also add that the HR committee voted 2-2 on this position. In our discussion, it became clear that each committee member had different expectations of what this position was supposed to be. One person, for example, felt that we needed a person with a master's versus a bachelor's degree. Another felt that this should coordinate the many initiatives of the First Selectmen's advisory committees and forward information that departments were implementing. Another felt that the description was vague and ambiguous, and the line of authority was ambiguous, and that the town needed to describe its goals and priorities with respect to this job. So even today, I will note that we either will have a condition, as we just heard, or there is also a position for a totally different function, and I'm not sure if that's just a new function that's being proposed or a change to this coordinator's position. So based on that, I am not ready to approve this.
You're ready to approve the motion.
I'm ready to approve the motion, but not the position, is
Just
what
to
I meant.
clarify, thank you.
Sorry.
Matt?
You're going to make my motion to condition this position at this time? Or waiting?
No, no,
waiting?
no.
All right. Oh, the suggestion here is, and let me just first start off by mentioning I'm in agreement with the comments that were just made with respect to the position as currently presented. The position suggestion that I'd like to put forward is retitling the position and focusing on energy management and cost reductions for our municipal buildings, schools, and infrastructure, and other budget-reducing measures. The position could have an immediate financial and operational impact to reduce one of the town's largest areas of financial exposure. The position would serve as a critical and much-needed source of support for town agencies and liaise between the Office of First Selectman and various committees and departments, including the Energy Management Advisory Committee, Greenwich Sustainability Committee, Environmental Affairs, Public Works, and Greenwich Public Schools. Importantly, the position should be included on all town building committees to assist in the development of energy-efficient construction at the earliest stages of design work and be engaged in developing ed specs for Greenwich Public Schools. Among other duties, the position would provide input into development of capital projects for energy management and initiate and coordinate energy efficiency projects for the town of Greenwich and Greenwich Public Schools. The position would also provide technical assistance and oversight of energy procurement and budgeting for all utilities and fuels for the town of Greenwich and the Board of Education, including grants, incentives, and utility rebate procurement. In my review of the operating budget, there are very few areas where we can find savings, and I think this is one of the areas that the town should be focusing on. It would have a large budget impact and produce possibilities for significant savings for the town.
I believe Karen would like to respond, please.
Yeah, I thank you for that description, and I thank you for the thoughtfulness in it. But again, this has not been vetted by the First Selectman's Office. This has not been vetted through Human Resources. I understand that your motion, which would come next, I believe, is subject to release on a revised job description that's more targeted. This is just not something that I feel comfortable doing literally on the fly without any thought or discussion or direction from the First Selectman's Office. You may have had conversations with the First Selectman's Office, but certainly the HR committee wasn't privy to it. I cannot support that at this time.
Elliot?
Thank you. I was one of the people that voted on this position. I agree with both Matt and Karen that this position needed further clarification. This may not pass today. I understand that, but I would just encourage everyone on the BET to recognize that we pay a lot of money for power. And I think we can save money. I think it's just a common sense issue. Connecticut has the third highest electric rates in the United States, followed only by Hawaii and Rhode Island. And obviously, Hawaii is going to be the highest paying electric rates. So we pay a lot of money for power, and there are different ways that we can save money by reducing demand, by reducing the per kilowatt hour charge that we pay. There are a lot of things that we can do, and to have a person to do that, I think we could. I think we can work in a bipartisan way together to get a job description that makes sense, that we're both happy with, and this person will save money. This person will pay for themselves. So I just would encourage everyone to recognize the high cost of electricity and the need for us to address this issue.
Yeah, Karen again, please.
I'd just like to point out that our purchasing department does negotiate rates, and while it may not be a perfect system, it certainly is a system that we have in place currently. I think that this particular position as described goes beyond just electric rates, for example. It goes to other things, including construction at the earliest stages of design for the Greenwich Public Schools and other things. So I do think that just approving this with a condition that we all agree on some sort of job description is not the right way to go at this point.
Leslie Tarkenton. If it's towards you, it's on.
Yeah, that's on.
Yes, it's on.
I know, but it's all red light.
That's right, it's on.
That's on.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so I would just like to point out that I don't really like the idea of not keeping to our organization. It's, you know, in general, we have departments that are responsible for both, you know, construction and maintenance, and separately, as Ms. Fasciolotis pointed out, for purchasing, and they do incorporate consultants. And I'm very uncomfortable with putting a person in the office of the first selectman that, for me, has no description within our organization chart. We have a very flat organization. It's very difficult to manage. And to me, if one needs to put this position, it needs to be much more thoughtful in terms of organization and the contributions.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, would you call the roll, please?
I certainly can do that. Alcheck,
I'm opposed to reducing this position.
DeChamp,
DeChamps?
DeChamp,
Abstain.
Aurora,
Yes.
Selps,
Abstain.
Fasciotis is a yes.
Fisher's a yes.
Tarkington,
Yes.
Moriarty,
No.
Weisbrod,
No.
Jansen,
Yes.
Kolb,
Abstain.
Alfano.
Yes.
Okay, so that is, hold on a second. I'll check.
633.
Yep.
624.
624.
No, 6-3. Oh, 6, yes, I'm
Six-
sorry, 624.
624, sorry.
No, 623. I only have 3. Hold on. Who abstained? Can you just
Raise your
repeat?
hand if you abstain. 1, 2,
To 12.
3
3.
abstentions.
Yeah, 3 abstentions. So it's 633.
633, the motion passes.
And it was Selps. Champ.
I believe
Kolb.
Matt can make his motion now to add the money back to the budget and
Correct.
condition it.
All right.
I'd like to make that motion.
Yes, I recognize you, Matt, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to make the motion to add the position back in condition as was described a few minutes ago, and as it reads before you.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion on this? I would just, take a note that this is sort of akin to designing a position at our decision day, and I really think this should be not approved, but as we've signaled to the first selectman that he really needs to do some work on the job description, the position, the qualifications, all of that. So with that, I'll take a vote, please. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Moriarty, make a comment?
Thank you. I think what this is doing is try to accelerate progress in cost reduction opportunities in the operating budget. If we don't do it now, yes, we can do an interim through the year. We know that that's more difficult, and this board is not necessarily receptive to that. But we could keep the money in the budget, keep the position in the TOO, and allow the Office of the First Selectman to refine the job description subject to our approval. So I think that this condition gives us flexibility. It doesn't require that we're going to come to agreement on the position, but it allows the town to try to move ahead on this initiative.
Karen would like to respond?
Yeah, I just, again, Republicans get criticized for micromanaging, then they get criticized for not thinking it through. Here we have a situation where this position obviously had no consensus whatsoever as to even what the idea of this position was in our committees, and now we're being asked to approve something that someone came up with the idea that we'll condition it and let the first selectman work it through. I just think that that's poor management of our finances, and I don't think that we should be approving this.
I'm sorry, Ms. Moriarty, please. And then you-
Just to compare this to the other motions that we as a board have taken up yesterday and today, this motion is to refine an idea that's out there and condition the funds. There's no guarantee, as opposed to many of the other motions we have, which are changes to programs that department heads have presented to us without any statistical or informational backup on the impact of those.
And I would just counter again that is it really up to this board to refine a position, or is it up to the department head to do that? And conditioning it and coming up with an alternative scheme for them to think about is not our job and is not our purview.
Ms. Aurora?
Thank you. I think, I think this position has good intention, but I think it also has potential to create contention within the community, and I'll explain. I think Mr. Alchek pointed out that cost of electricity is high in the state, one of the highest in the country. The cost of electricity, as most of us know, is two-part distribution and supply. The supply is what we have control over. The distribution is something we don't have control over. That's the wires, the infrastructure that get electricity to us. And that's really because of poor policy at the state level that we have chosen from the infrastructure side. Now, on the supply side, that's really, who we choose as our supplier, whether it's Eversource, et cetera, and that's really a purchasing role. The role of this position, the energy director, appears to be more of, as I'm thinking through new construction or renovations of buildings, do we want to use geothermal? Do we want to go to solar? Do we want to stick to natural gas? And I think those are issues we're still, as a community, discussing, and we have very strong opinions on both sides, and not always political. And you can see that right now playing out even on the Ham Ave project, where there seems to be a large point of contention of whether geothermal is the right step forward, whether it's natural gas is the way to stick with it. And there's just, those are points in the community that we are all talking through. So I think we risk with this position. So I'm against this position. I understand there's also discussion on how it got into this role without the OFS, the Office of First Selectman, approving it. But even if it were to come to us, I don't think this is a great idea. I think it creates an opportunity for one individual to set the mandate for what the energy plan would look like for this town. And I'm not sure that's where we want to go in government for that role to exist. So I fundamentally disagree with this position in the way it's structured, and I wouldn't support it irrespective, even if the process was right. So.
Any other discussion?
I just want to clarify that this doesn't mandate anything. It's a position that would serve as a resource. In my experience on the RTM and in town government, albeit limited, one of the things that's become clear to me is that we could use a resource like this to help the town with its energy consumption and to meet objectives that I think we all have, which is to reduce our operating expenses. And I'll say once more, there are very few areas that I've seen to find ways to reduce our operating expenses, and energy consumption and energy expenses is one of them. And we make very hard choices, as we've done yesterday and today, and we will do in the future, that affect, as was mentioned a few minutes ago, people's lives. And yet, we are wasting energy costs now, and this is a position that would allow for that. It's a suggestion to the Office of First Selectman. It does not require. This is a suggestion to come back to us with this that we would subsequently approve, and I would like you to consider it, and I would hope you would be in favor of this measure.
I'll just make a concluding remark here that energy management is very, very complex. I think we're learning that from all the geothermal discussions and, the issues surrounding what we've just been discussing here. I think it's a perfect place to select and hire consultants to help advise the town and not expect a single person to be able to be all-encompassing in that regard.
Whoops. Your
Oops, what was
water
that?
fell. Your water fell.
Oh. Thank you. With that, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Olczak,
I vote in favor of the motion.
DeChamp,
Yes.
Aurora,
No.
Selps,
Yes.
Vasiliotis, no.
Fisher, no.
Tarkington,
No.
Moriarty,
Yes.
Weisbrod,
Yes.
Jansen,
No.
Cobb,
Yes.
Alfano.
No.
Motion fails 6-6. Okay, continuing on. 106, Purchasing Department.
Got a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Alfano.
I'm sorry, Mr. Alfano.
Are you in the right-
Oh, yeah, I'm in the right place. Sorry. I'm getting all confused.
A motion to add $126,193 to account 106, purchasing regular salaries, and delete $126,193 from account 600, Board of Ed Administration.
And I'll second it,
Okay, thank you.
right?
Yes. Yes.
That works.
Okay.
This is to add a position to the town's purchasing department, which is a position charged with responsibility for ordering supplies for the Board of Education and the issuance of any required RFPs for the Board of Education. There would be a concurrent reduction of this position in the Board of Education's purchasing department, TOO, without any loss of personnel. This will further assure that all purchasing done by town departments are consistent and that the best pricing can be obtained for overlapping requisitions between the Board of Education and other town departments.
Discussion on the motion. Ms. Moriarty?
I'd like to ask what information you have to say that that's not currently occurring. Best pricing, consistency. You're making some statements. Can I ask, did you have conversations with the purchasing department, either at the Board of Ed or the town or their management?
I have not.
So I want to just point out, there are a couple things that I have to say about this. I don't believe this is a good idea, but my biggest objection is that this is the absolute incorrect way to affect organizational change. A finance board should not, independently of input from management, input of data, of issues, we don't know what problem you're trying to solve, if this problem even exists. I saw this amendment in the packet. I did, along with Harry, meet with the town administrator and the superintendent to understand the current status of the purchasing area and how much collaboration is done and what the differences are between the two organizations. And we emphatically heard that these two departments work very closely together. They share purchasing agreements that provide basic office resources to both areas of town. They use the same process in terms of contract review. They use the same purchasing manual, with one exception that the Board of Ed has additional responsibilities for vendors that do work in school buildings for state statute, that contractors have to be background checked, and that there is significant collaboration between the two departments. We're not talking about a cost efficiency. Doesn't sound like there is much opportunity for operating efficiencies. So I'm not sure what problem we're trying to solve here. Number two, we're creating a labor problem, okay? In a finance budget, we're now dictating an organizational change affecting union employees that is typically something, the area that we negotiate with a union prior to especially any discussion or action at the town body. I think that for this board to move forward with organizational changes like this without discussion, without understanding objectives, without setting up understanding of who has what responsibility for whom, what are the reporting structures, what's the accountability matrix, what if there's a problem in purchasing for the Board of Ed and it's sitting over at town, does the superintendent have the same authority going in there as the town administrator to solve problems? I think they can work through those things if it makes sense. But we haven't asked the question if it makes sense. This did not come up during the budget deliberations. This did not come up at the HR committee. This is such a bad process, and I really hope that my comments will influence some of the members on this board who are considering this change.
Recognize, you want to speak? Or Leslie Tarkenton first?
Let Leslie.
Ms. Tarkenton first.
Oh, it's always red now. You think it
working.
works?
You have to-
No,
you
it's
have to-
been red.
It's making noise.
It's red.
It's
just-
working.
Okay, so it works even though it says it's red. There are a couple of things here, and perhaps, and I apologize, I wasn't paying sufficient attention. It was my understanding that there would be a period to do this investigation and make sure it all works well, and that there would be a period up to December 31, 2024, for these organizational questions that Leslie has raised, make sure that everything is resolved. Is my understanding correct?
I think you have to make a motion to add a condition to this.
I didn't think it was a condition. I thought that
Well, you could ask the person who proposed it.
well,
to
that's
make
what I
that
thought.
change.
That's what I thought I was doing. I was looking that way.
I'd be fine with that, Leslie.
So I think, I'm sorry? I'm just saying that, that this didn't have to happen at the first of the year, Leslie, that, for the organizational kind of issues that you're raising, that that be through December 31. I'd also like to comment that sort of not in agreement with Ms. Moriarty. We've talked, and this has been in the budget guidelines and in meetings on the budget with town and BOE meeting together. I think we've made some excellent progress with the purchasing manual, but it was a long, tedious matter. It's my memory that, in past, for major town projects, even for the schools, it would be town purchasing, as an example, during the process. So I do think that this needs to be addressed, and I will be supporting this motion.
Ms. Ferrara, just checking that you as seconder accept that change
What was the change?
to make it effective December 31st.
No later than.
No later than December 31st.
Did
David approved.
David approved? Okay, yes.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to speak also?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment.
A little closer if you could, sorry.
Sorry, I wanted to make just a quick comment on Ms. Moriarty's comment that the finance board should not be dictating organizational change. And I would agree with that statement, but just 5 minutes ago, your caucus, a member of your caucus made a motion to add an energy director without any information to this board, without any discussion with the Office of First Selectman, and also potentially not only creating a union position, but also dictating the way our energy policy for this town should look. So I'm not sure that that statement is fair to say that, you know, we are, as a finance board, looking to change just because we precisely just did that. But, and as far as the process, I think the idea here on purchasing, as Ms. Tarkington has pointed out, we have continually put it in the budget guidelines that we want to find efficiencies in government, and the logical places when the same role exists across two different units, is there a way to consolidate? And we haven't seen any movement, so this is one way to encourage that. The individuals are still there. They could, the reporting structure is different, but they could, in theory, physically be sitting in the same location, doing the same role. So I hope that point of view is accepted.
Thank you. Leslie Tarkington?
So Ms. Moriarty
Takes a little
pointed out that while everyone's agreed to implement this in a period up to December 31st, 2024, the salary amount is for the full amount. So perhaps they'd be willing to consider an additional clause to say the amount would be adjusted based on the implementation date of or upon the effectiveness date of this transfer.
Is that acceptable to the proposer and seconder?
That's acceptable.
Nisha, is that acceptable? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment? Mr. Chairman?
I'm
sorry.
sorry,
Just
the other
because-
direction. Yes, please.
Well, I just want to clarify the comment that was just made by my colleague, Ms. Aurora. The condition I put forward was not to create a position, A. It was to modify an existing position, which we all agreed was not a position definition, the sustainability coordinator, to be specific, that we found to be acceptable. It was too general. And so it was simply to suggest to the Office of First Selectman that they clarify the position, subject to our approval for a condition of release for monies already budgeted. And second, the position in no way, shape, or form dictates energy policy, which is also a misstatement.
Can I just quickly respond to that?
Yes, please,
Yeah,
Ms. Aurora.
it says, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but it says the position should be retitled Energy Director. I mean, we're a finance board, so I'm not sure that's in our mandate. And Matt, I'm not trying to give you a hard time here, and by the way, I had no problem with that we created it. I'm just saying Ms. Moriarty's comment, saying we as a finance board should not be directing organizational changes through the finance board, and sometimes we do that, and that's exactly what I
That's
saw
fair.
you do.
No. Well, I
Um,
think they're very different. This was it says EG Energy Director. It was a suggestion. The position could be retitled, should be retitled. We're not prescribing anything here with my condition. What Ms. Moriarty, I believe, is objecting to is a much different situation where you are literally, and I'll read, add one position to the town's purchasing department without any consultation whatsoever with the appropriate parties. These are very different things, and I would hope you wouldn't conflate them.
Yeah, no, Matt, it's a transfer, so right, it's just the way the technical term is an add and a delete. It's just, again, the role could exactly the same, the reporting structure is different. I actually agree with you that we're kind of a little bit out of our lane, but I think we were just as much out of our lane in the prior motion. So the parallel is just, and I don't want to go back and forth on this, but I just want to, kind of lay the framework here that sometimes we do some of this. We use our financial tools to or budgeting to kind of make changes, which maybe we think in our mind could help the overall budget.
Ms. Moriarty, please.
So I'd like to put an idea out there, because at this point, this will be another thing that goes down along party lines. I think if there were an actual project to evaluate the benefits and the disadvantages of the consolidation, with and reports and controlled by our HR committee, I think that is a more appropriate way to consider this kind of consolidation. I think there are issues here that clearly, the fact that we didn't talk to the managers directly is concerning, but I think there are issues that we all need to understand of what the impact of this change would be, and we do not have that information. So to be prudent managers and appropriate, having appropriate responsibility for the financial affairs of the organization, we should be doing the study, and you can condition the funding if you want. Condition a half-year salary of this position. You can't condition the Board of Ed budget, but you can condition something else. But to move ahead with the study with an accelerated time frame to review this and reach a conclusion, but I am very uncomfortable making a change without understanding the impact of the organization or the operations.
Yes, Mr. Kalb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, I have to say that I feel that this is just an awful process. I didn't find out about this until the night before decision day, had no chance to look at it, had no chance to check any information, had no chance to check policy implications, efficiencies, union contracts, what structurally, how it would work. I mean, there's just there's nothing. And it's not that I necessarily object to the idea. The fact is, I don't know. But what I do object to is that all of a sudden, the night before I have to make a decision, it's thrust upon us, and it's a structural change. And I just feel that this is not the right way for us to be going about business. We don't push down things like this without having adequate time to consider them and check them. I mean, on decision day, our two caucus chairs, or the chair of this committee, had to sit down with our supervisors on the day we're supposed to make a decision to try and find out what the implications are. I just think it's just a bad way to go about business, and I kind of resent it. I don't want to have to make a decision like this in this way. It's not that I disregard wanting to look for efficiencies, but how can you make a decision like this in this manner? It's like, let's agree, okay, we want to check this, maybe this is a really good idea, let's push it back and do it properly and bring it back. If you said by the end of the year, well, what we should do is actually then go in and either have our committee, HR committee, or have some reports delivered to us or something so that we can make a proper decision. Thank you.
Ms. Tarkenton, and hopefully that will do it before a vote.
So I just want to be clear, Mr. Kalb, that you understand that we have budget guidelines. We've had them year after year. The first bullet point under specific areas for discussion at budget meetings in this year's budget guidelines is the assessment of consolidation by town and BOE/schools of core services. This is us, the BET, talking. The BET requests that the town and BOE leadership together provide a plan for areas that would benefit from consolidation of services with the goal of achieving consistent practices, productivity improvements, lowering operating risks, and/or cost savings. The Budget Committee requests that leadership consider identification and execution of the opportunity, including its pros/cons, the objectives to be achieved, the process and timing, and evaluation of outsourcing. Leadership should identify appropriate BET-BOE committees to support their initiatives, so that here we agree with you, or alternatively appoint a working group. I think what's happened is we ask for this again and again, and it's not being received. So, as long as there isn't a big rush on this, and it looks to me that there's like up to 9 months to, for this consideration, that something being put forth, and perhaps this will be more of a motivating factor. So, well, I think that certainly it's very frustrating, isn't it, as a BET member, not to have this considered. Okay, I shouldn't have answered you, but I didn't ask the chairman, but I did.
Yes, Mr. Weisbrod.
Thank you. I'm a little confused. The way I'm reading this amendment is, it appears to be amendment, a mandate, not a consideration. So let me take these one at a time. Now I'm talking about what you wrote here. It's saying, what is the amendment here is executing a change. There's nothing for consideration. This is an execution of something immediately. Am I wrong? Mr. Alfano?
Let me read what we believe this is today, which is,
Hang on. Let's go ahead, Harry. Sorry.
as written in the booklet, with the addition of the following. The salary amount will be adjusted between departments upon the implementation on or before December 31st, 2024.
Salary amount will be, say it
Will
again.
be adjusted between the departments upon the implementation on or before December 31, 2024.
Right, so that's a mandate. That's not about consideration. That's,
That's correct.
so, sorry. So I would go back to the proposer here, Mr. Alfano, with a couple of other questions. How many people in the Board of Ed are involved in the,
One.
One position.
okay. So, Mr. Geiger, there's more than one? At least one. So right away, you're making a proposal. You haven't talked to the department. You haven't even bothered to talk to the budget director. You don't know how many positions. You're saying one is going. You don't know about the other. You're mandating that this occur. None of it was discussed at the budget committee. It was never, ever evaluated as part of a month-long budget process. We're seeing this at 6 o'clock the night before we have a meeting, and you're saying to us that, we shouldn't do things on the fly? I mean, seriously, I am all for considering and by the way, what evidence is there that this will create an efficiency? Have you any proof that this is going to be an efficiency? I don't think so. You haven't talked to the department involved. This is the most thoughtless thing I've ever seen. I am not opposed to efficiencies, and I'm perfectly willing to consider the merger of departments if they make sense. But it's the obligation of this board to act with thoughtfulness and at least getting a command of the facts. The facts still do matter.
Mr. Olchek?
Thank you. I just want to ask a question, a clarification question along the lines of what Mr. Weisbrod was just mentioning. So is this person, we're just going to move them from one department to another, or are we firing one person and hiring another person?
Karen?
No, when I asked the question as to how many positions are in purchasing, I was given the answer of one person, okay? This is not intended to remove anybody from their positions. This is just meant to be a reporting change.
So we're taking the same person.
The individuals can still sit in the Board of Education, for all I know, and still do whatever they do for the Board of Education, but they are just now reporting to a new manager. That's all this is. This is not getting rid of people. This is not changing the way they do things. This is just reporting in to one person who is now responsible for townwide purchasing, and so that everything can be the same across the board. These two individuals, I was originally told one, but these two individuals can still order the pencils, can do whatever they want with the contracts for the Board of Ed, but they're reporting now into the town side of it, not the Board of Ed side of it.
Yes, Mr. Selps.
Has anyone asked the town attorney or the labor director whether there are any collective bargaining agreement implications of this, because you're moving employees from department to department?
My understanding is that the contract is LiUNA, I believe, and that they're LiUNA employees. So I don't think there is any contractual, so.
But
no,
have you asked
I haven't asked specifically, but that
Thank
could
you.
be part of the implementation part of it before December 31st.
Any other comments, please?
So, with best respect, there's a good idea here, and it's one that we should bottom out collaboratively as 12 finance people. And the good idea is, can we create an efficiency with the purchasing department? But you know, we're unclear about the fundamentals, the number of positions, the number of the labor negotiation aspects of this. The efficiencies, how much there are, how much they're not. I think the idea has merit, but let's bottom out these. These are not unimportant questions. They are fundamental questions about what we're trying to do. What are we trying to do here? And let's figure it out and then go to an execution, not execute and then figure something out on the fly afterwards.
Okay, I think we've done with discussion. I'm just going to point out that this has been something that has been on the radar for years. And I would echo Ms. Tarkington's quoting from the budget guidelines, which were approved unanimously, I believe. Maybe not unanimously, but were approved by the BET. And with that, I would like to ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Okay, all check. All check. DeChamp.
No.
Aurora.
Yes.
Selps.
No.
Vasiliotis, yes. Fisher.
Yes.
Tarkington.
Yes.
Moriarty.
Absolute no to this crazy idea.
Weisbrod.
No.
Jansen.
Yes.
Kalb.
No.
Alfano.
Yes.
All check.
I'm going to vote a no, but I really wanted to vote yes for this, and I just feel like the process wasn't handled properly.
So that's a 6-6, right?
Right, that's a 6-6.
So I'll cast a deciding vote in favor of the motion to add as presented.
Okay. Administrative, 107, Administrative Services Center. 109, Human Resources.
You see it?
Yes. I have a motion to add 186,719 to account 109-51010 payroll staff, and to correspondingly delete 186,719 from Greenwich Public School budget.
I second, and there is a typo in this explanation that it is 2, not 3 payroll staff.
These two motions will not result in any reduction of staff, but rather result in a centralized reporting for the town's payroll structure. Unlike the previous discussion we had, this has a catalyst. A very thorough, complete report was recently given regarding Greenwich Public Schools' payroll responsibilities, where recent serious deficiencies were described. The purpose of the reduction is to consolidate department payroll functions into the town's Human Resource Department to assure that the payroll is being processed in a consistent and proper manner. The mechanics to achieve this is to increase the table of organization of the Human Resource Department on the town payroll staff. This will assure oversight and provide for consistency across departments for the town's payroll function. This change should be accomplished up to December 31st, 2024, in order to give time for the implementation.
With the consent of the proposer and seconder, I would just adopt the same sentence, suggest adopting the same sentence, that the salary amount will be adjusted between the departments upon the implementation date on or before December 31st, 2024. Is that acceptable, Ms. Jansen?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And Ms.
Yes.
Vassiliadis? Okay. Discussion, please. Ms. Moriarty, please.
Let me first ask that condition and the implementation of that condition. How does the budget then get presented to the RTM in terms of increasing a department's appropriation in the middle of the year? So we put the salaries in both places, but if it happens earlier, then one department's going to be underfunded. So I think this, just
We can make-
practically.
We can do a budget adjustment,
We
can't
can
we?
make adjustments.
But it has to go to the RTM. We cannot, if it's going to increase a department, it's going to require a budget adjustment.
We can do that.
Well, you're assuming they'll agree, but yes. Or we put salary in both places for the time being. Don't have to fund it that way. We don't have to include both salaries when calculating the mill rate level.
Right. I would do
Yeah.
half and half.
We can do half and half.
All right, so that's
That
the first
works.
question. All right, before I trot out the same arguments that I had the first time, I'll just say ditto, right? Nobody was consulted at, talked to at our human resources committee level or our budget committee level about the potential of this change. This certainly is, again, not objecting to this being studied and discussed with the managers to understand how it would be done and what the benefits and disadvantages of making the change would be. But mandating the change without knowing the implications there, without knowing the labor relations impact, as Stephen represented or asked questions about during the prior discussion, is poor management, and it's embarrassing to this board, in my opinion.
Further discussion? Matt?
Yeah, thanks, Mr.
Once you get
Thanks,
this-
Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo what Ms. Moriarty just mentioned, just because I'm not comfortable with that. I know well enough, frankly, and I don't think my colleagues do either, the knock-on effects of some of these decisions. So, just in that last example, the purchasing change, the adjustment between departments, reporting lines, what have you, there could be other job functions and responsibilities these individuals have. Fingerprinting, organizing field trips, doing other things other than what might be obvious in the job description. And we're here now, and as a finance board, dictating HR policies, procedures, protocols, and job descriptions and movements of reporting lines. It just doesn't seem like the right thing for us to be doing, simply because the intent is good. I want to echo that point that was made. Like, we're trying to find efficiencies, and we, all 12, I'm sure, are for that. The way we're doing this is naive and not well considered, has unintended consequences, and we're going to leave this room today not knowing what we've accomplished, where we found efficiencies or not, for one, but B, we're dictating HR policy changes that could have real significant impacts on the departments involved, and we just simply weren't aware of what we were doing. And I just don't see how we can do that responsibly.
Further discussion? I would just like to say that a number of us have discussed this with the head of HR who, is responsible for payroll. Mr. Kalb.
Again, thank you, Mr. Fisher, and thank you to my colleagues. I happen to think that this is a very interesting idea. I like the substance of it. But again, and as I said, I think it's, I'm not against this in material terms, but again, I don't like this feeling of having this all of a sudden kind of jammed down my throat without having the full consideration. And I feel like there are. I actually think this morning our chair, our caucus chair, our BET chair, also sat down with the Board of Education, the supervisor of the schools, sat down with the town administrator, talked to others to try and get some information. It seems like this is actually a promising area that could be worked on, but there is a number of things that need to be worked out. I mean, there are other jobs that these people are doing besides just simply payroll, so transferring them would cause some other adjustments. Again, we've got these union considerations. We've got pay scale issues. Talked to HR. HR said, well, wait a second, people are on different levels. There's a lot of just different considerations, and I think that what I'd like to see is some kind of condition on this that we get we're already saying, okay, let's make it effective by the end of the year. I think that's a good idea. But I would like to see some kind of report that comes back to us so we can see what get more information in front of us so that we can see what the ramifications are, and that we have a chance to maybe reassess or make further recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Geiger, please.
So the amount that we are moving into the budget is half of what we're talking about, is that right?
That's, I think, the
I think,
consensus
yes.
is half the amount on both the purchasing and the payroll, with potential adjustments later. Okay, call the roll, please.
Yes, Alfano. Alfano?
Yes.
Cobb?
No.
Jansen?
Yes.
Weisbrod?
No.
Moriarty?
No.
Tarkington?
Fisher,
Fisher.
yes.
Fasciotis, yes. Selps?
No.
Aurora?
Yes.
DeChamp?
No.
Walczek?
No.
6-6.
It's a 6-6 tie. I will cast the vote to make it 7-6 to approve the change.
Okay, moving on. Probate, 111 probate court, 120 registrar of voters. And this is a motion from Roland to increase the salary line of the registrar of voters to longevity payment, which has not been budgeted, of $600.
So are you moving that?
I'll move it.
I'll second that. Oh, sorry, Stephen, go ahead. Motion by Fasciotis, seconded by Selps, to increase the registrar of voters salary line by 1126 and other salaries by 600 for a total of 1726. Is there any discussion on the item? Ms. Moriarty, please.
I just want to ask the question of the HR department that adjusted the registrar of voters' salary starting January 1. I don't know when this payment gets made. Is this in this calendar year or next calendar year?
That is actually isn't a payment to the registrars.
Okay.
They didn't realize that they had a person in the union that was eligible for a stipend.
Oh, someone in the department.
It's GMEA person, yes.
Okay, so it's not for the registrar's department. Okay, thank you.
Correct. Sorry, I wasn't clear.
Okay, any further discussion? Is there any objection to adopting by unanimous consent?
I'm sorry, what is the dollar amount?
The total dollar amount is $1,726. Any objection to a unanimous consent? Any objection to approving the item? Seeing none, this is approved 12-0-0.
$130 finance administration, $134 information technology.
Yes.
Yep. Yep,
Yes.
you're up,
Well, I
Leslie.
know, but okay.
Just a delay.
So this is a motion to add $30,000 to the information technology department.
I'll second that, Leslie.
Okay,
Uh,
discussion, Ms. Tarkington, please.
Yes, the town for approximately the last 8 years has a town-wide cybersecurity program for all departments with the expectation to have an external cybersecurity advisor that is multifaceted and would have resources to assess ongoing cybersecurity risks and mitigation. The $30,000 is to again have Apollo, the current town-wide cybersecurity advisor, coordinate with the Board of Education cybersecurity initiatives and to assess related mitigations. Outside of this amendment, Later in fiscal year 24 or in fiscal year 25, finance should support and IT should perform an updated digital risk assessment for all entities, including schools. So I will also add to this discussion that this is something that has been discussed with the IT departments and with Tom Klein and with Ben Branyon, and that they actually have put forth a plan for digital risk department with a proposed operating budget for fiscal year 25. And that the plan is on our April 9th Budget Committee meeting to have a discussion and to attend moving forward with an actual plan to implement a better coordinated townwide cybersecurity. And that will happen with marginal costs. The IT director recommends that it is time, perhaps with discussion, to have an update overall for all the departments. It's been, whatever it has been 5 or 6 years, Pete, since it was last done. And that might cost a total of $60,000. This is $30,000, just to, for an umbrella, we'll call it, over for a townwide Apollo. And there are no changes here to the Board of Education. The Board of Education will continue to have exactly the same persons if the Board of Education chooses. I mean, I'm not dictating anything. To implement anything that they should, to do their own remediation on any kind of issues. This is just to make sure there's an umbrella townwide.
Mr. Menarski?
Through the chair to Ms. Tarkington, the last sentence, does this mean finance is paying for it?
I think that
Takes a little while, just a delay.
that would be a discussion. I've talked to Mr. Geiger, who's mentioned more than one time to me that there is available $150,000 for any kind of plan in finance, but at this point in time, there is no plan. The actual plan would be for this to be paid for by IT, but if we need to do any kind of study, there might be a reason to hire, and that I think would probably be working with the Budget Committee, working with Audit Committee. There is no plan. This is $30,000 for the
Ask the question a different way?
Yes.
Okay. For the 5 of you who do not know, the BET actually has $150,000 embedded in the 130 account, which is the finance department. It's money that you use at your discretion. My question is simple. Is the money that you're saying here, finance support, coming out of the 150?
No, this is the way this amendment is put forth, and this is again discussed with Mr. Klein, and Ben Branyon's been involved, our town administrator. But it's $30,000, and this money is a addition to the information technology department.
It would be in addition to the budget.
Addition to their budget.
In other
30,000.
words, the IT department is going up 30,000.
It's not a,
No, I think what you're referring to is the other, the
Outside of
the
this amendment, it says.
There's going to be a discussion of possibly a study later on, but nothing has been determined yet. Okay, so that's outside of this.
So-
But
The
it-
only thing that's changing is that the IT department will be going up 30,000.
okay, let me just make sure, Mr. Menarski, you're clear on it now? No. This is an addition to the budget for fiscal '25 of information technology of $30,000. It has nothing to do
With
with
that last
the
sentence.
consulting money that's in the finance
Right,
department.
right. Right.
Yeah, okay,
And then the reference to fiscal '24, which is the current year, confused me.
right. Well, that's outside of this amendment, that it's going to come up at the April budget meeting to look at an entire overreaching thing that, is yet to be determined.
And this was to address any concerns that Ms. Moriarty might raise, that she's raised similarly in other departments. This certainly has been discussed widely, and it certainly would come before the Budget Committee and plan to put it on the April 9th agenda.
Okay. Mr. Weisbrod.
Question, has this $30,000, has this No? I think it's on. Good. Okay, great. Oh, wonderful. You referenced that there is a April 9th Budget Committee meeting which will cover this. I am on the Budget Committee. I have not had any discussions on this. It's the first time I'm seeing it. It has this item, $30,000. I may be fine with it. I may not be fine with it. But is there any reason why this wouldn't go through the normal committee process? Why do we elevate this to decision day when it hasn't been before any committee?
This is a fiscal 25 budget appropriation. David, if you remember, we had cybersecurity as one of our topics. Was
Well, we have-
actually excuse me, David, for one of our topics on one of our days, we did have Mr. Ting come from Board of Education and gave a very lengthy discussion in executive session, I believe, but that could be corrected on
Yeah,
that.
I was.
And so, yes, there have been opportunities for the discussion, and as I pointed out, there have been discussions. Perhaps you haven't been involved, but others have.
Well, no, let's review this. Let's take a moment here. This is interesting. So Mr. Ting did make a presentation before the Budget Committee. I was there, paid close attention. Not only that, I've been very involved with the item when I was on the Audit Committee. So I'm very fully aware of the cyber issues. You don't have to lecture me on what was discussed at those meetings. I'm simply saying the item for a $30,000 increase for Apollo, which is a strange out-of-the-blue item, this item never went, as far as I know, before any committee. And is it normal for us to take appropriations like this without them going through any committee process? Why? Because at the committees, they're discussed, they're debated, they're reviewed. We spent a month going through budget stuff, and then I see this. It could be great, but I would suggest that on April 9th, when we do have a committee, the Budget Committee, we review it in that sequence. And I probably will support it, but I cannot support it when it gets thrown in here in this helter-skelter way.
Let me just comment to remind everybody that this was intensively discussed with Tom Klein, with Ben Branyon. Yes, it didn't come before a budget committee, but the concern came before the budget committee, and the concern has come before the audit committee, and it is an important aspect and an important recommendation of the head of IT. With that, I'll recognize Ms. Moriarty, please.
Yeah, I'd like to just take Mr. Minarski up on his suggestion here. Rather than increase our fiscal 25 budget, if this is an initiative we want to authorize, we can authorize it today using the existing funds we have in the fiscal 24 budget within the finance department. The consulting money is there. If the study doesn't get started now, it can be encumbered, so it can be performed when it needs to be performed. I think the issue that's coming up to April is a separate issue. But I think this is an easy budget. This isn't a cut to the budget, but not adding to our operating budget next year when we can afford to pay for it with fiscal 24 funds. So I suggest we vote no on this, take it up at the Budget Committee in our April business with the BET.
I think that's probably pretty much a wash. So, any other discussion?
I'm sorry.
Yes? Elliot?
No, no. I'm sorry.
I just have a question. Is this an ongoing $30,000 per year, or is this a one-time payment?
I
Is
think
this
this-
a,
I
is
think
this
this
an
will be
annual
an-
payment?
This will be an ongoing amount, is my expectation, but, it's really going to be a more intensive, as the last paragraph in this sheet says, finance should support and IT should perform an updated digital risk assessment for all entities, including schools. We really are due for that, so a lot will fall out of that.
Just a quick follow-up question, if I may.
Yes,
Where,
ma'am.
where did the $30,000 figure come from? Like, how do we know that's the?
That was consulted with the head of IT.
This is the IT director's
The IT director's
proposed number.
proposed number.
Thank you.
So just to clarify again, this is not coming from Apollo, this is coming from our IT director.
No, the $30,000 is to do his recommendation to have Apollo have an umbrella look at cybersecurity across the town. The schools will still be doing 2 levels. He's really got a 3-level plan, and this is the umbrella, but he will work with Michael Ting. They've already met about this. They're in agreement about this. And it's the amount to just have the umbrella, but there is still cybersecurity being done within the schools under Michael Ting.
But once again, I'm sorry, I'm not getting
We ought to
this.
limit ourselves as to how much more that we ought to discuss about that.
Well, I'm just trying to clarify, is this charge Apollo's charge? Are we just paying their bill? Is this $30,000 coming from Apollo? Maybe
No,
Pete.
it's coming from Tom Klein. To Apollo.
Right, Tom Klein made the decision that $30,000 would cover this umbrella review, if you will. And that is the money that he wants to pay Apollo. That, it didn't emanate from Apollo, it emanated from Tom Klein.
It's really an enhancement to our cybersecurity.
Harry, can I say?
Ms. Aurora?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I think the discussion on where this belongs, I understand the concerns of maybe not having enough robust discussion.
A little closer.
Yes, I understand that the discussion on possibly not having as much of a robust discussion, but putting that aside for a second, and understanding that there is consensus with our town administrator and the IT department to do this, I do think this budget belongs in the IT department and not within the finances, 150K, Pete, that you're suggesting, simply because I don't think we have the oversight to manage this process. And if it were to sit within the BET 150K, it would effectively become our responsibility to manage. So I think this is appropriately placed in the IT department's budget.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I think we need to call the roll.
Okie dokie. Alcheck,
I pass.
DeChamp,
Yes.
Aurora,
Yes.
Selps,
Yes.
Vasiliotis, yes.
Fisher, yes.
Tarkington,
Yes.
Moriarty,
Yes.
Weisbrod,
No.
Jansen,
Yes.
Kalb,
Yes.
Alfano,
Yes.
Alcheck.
Abstain.
So that is 10-1-1.
10, 1, and 1, and I'm hearing a plea for a 5-minute break. Let's try to be back by 3:05 at the latest, please.
So,
But this money, we're just paying it out.
Was it? I don't like that. No, I don't.
No, go back to yours.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
doing
that's
ours.
fine with me. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I don't.
No,
don't like
I
it
just
either. It's
texted you, I thought.
They just shredded it. That's all.
Oh, wait, I don't.
Sorry if we confused you.
I'm more confused than ever. I gotta ask the expert here. What is a digital assessment?
I have no idea.
You know what it is?
If it had gone through the budget committee, we,
You used the term FY 24, which is now, and you said said finance supports, so that means I pay for it.
Probably part of it.
But on the
Secondary
We're having a
funding,
meeting,
I know.
we're gonna have a meeting, you know, this isn't an appropriation, we'll have a meeting and discuss it. No one has to do anything.
This is an
But I was
appropriation.
trying to make sure.
This was an appropriation
It's not a 30,000.
to Tom's budget.
I tried, Pete, I tried.
I agree with Misha, we have to be careful with
I'll
certifying
go forward to assessment, I just don't know where it is.
he just wants to make sure that things are being, the remediation is being, look, I go back some period of time, with, you know, it was Tony Turner and.
I remember.
And
Downstairs in the board.
and maybe, and Deborah Hess. I'm sorry, and they were the ones.
No, we're gonna go
And they were the ones who felt we should do something. This is only trying to get at least one thing.
Really, can you start by
You know,
If we can't be done,
there was no, were you involved in this?
Make it,
I don't want to.
I mean, she called me, she wants to talk about it, but I said,
Yeah.
but it's been in school, Lucia, I just wanted to explain that, I had mentioned to Karen that the condition on the paper was a little confusing to follow, and so she asked me to suggest alternate language, so that's just what that is.
I saw it. I actually prefer the one we had before. I think that this doesn't even include the opening date, October 2024.
Well, it's,
No.
oh, well, you can add it, but you're, I have to tell you, I read your thing 5 times and I did not know your conditioning.
Okay.
So maybe there is something you can modify to something more simple. This gets to what you want to do, but in October, and it's suggested, it's not my motion. So Karen asked me to show the kind of simpler language.
Did Joe look at this one?
Did he look at it? No.
You said this all dated me. Did Joe look at this?
That concept is your concept rewritten, okay?
In your opinion, he already agreed to ours.
What's not in there that's in yours? What's in yours that's not in there, other than October?
Well, I just highlighted one.
So
Let me look at it.
that's easy
This
to
is on
add.
the fly. I can't, I have to look at it, Leslie. I mean, really, you do have it.
Where we are. I know, I'm just very,
I mean, you do have strong, you do have strong rhetoric at times, and it's, you know, you're bringing this on the fly. You haven't gone to the department head. These are the things
I
you say
went-
during
I-
the day.
what I said. was
Right?
that your
Am I
condition was-
right?
So on the fly, I will mention that your conditions, I don't know what it means.
She wants to have us modify it.
It was already passed. It was already agreed to. In HR, right? Fuck that, yeah. Yeah, good idea. Yeah, we got a higher priority.
What's that?
For you.
Was changed slightly, right?
Simplified to the point where you don't even mention the opening date. I don't understand what's not clear. Can you explain it? It's on page 14.
Right here.
Oh, here.
Here.
So,
Subject to the lease at the start date of employee is not earlier than 90 days of the related opening date.
I didn't understand.
That just simplifies what's here.
I know, but we have an anticipated opening of October 2024. It doesn't have the 3 months in there.
Well, no, the 90 days, that's the 3 months.
I
So,
know.
so this way, whenever that date is, right, whatever that date is, look, this is gonna be moved because they're just about done now. But this guarantees what you were asking for.
No, I don't think it's clear. I don't get there.
We don't accept that. We want the motion that was originally agreed to.
I mean, Mr.
Well, let's debate it, let's debate it.
Right, that's why we said the July 1.
Scott.
Tell people to, ignore that. That's a suggestion. Well, we can all be frustrated today, I guess.
But he keeps coming back with his coat on, so is his coat out to have a cigarette?
Does he smoke?
No, I don't think so. It's just a funny thought that just occurred to me.
Who are we missing?
We're missing Scott and Elliot. Where's Elliot? Did you see Scott?
I did not, no.
He's getting a coffee, yeah. Don't know where. Where's that coffee?
Finance Department.
It'll be 2 minutes.
In that little room, yeah, in that.
Bad idea. Give me one, Elliot. Oh, it's not going.
Is it really?
I'm not going, I'm telling you that now.
Obviously, I hadn't.
Oh,
Oh, I didn't notice.
so, Harry, did you see Amina wrote to you, or all of it?
No.
Or to- no, to you. Some of us. Okay. Is that something you have to reopen?
I think that what we do is leave it as is and really have some talk without Amina. We can look at this in April and remove, if we have to, we can remove the position in April or May.
You also lowered the dollar amount. Oh, no, the 800.
Okay. Hello? We're running out of time here. We've got to give up the room at 6:30 or 7 or something like that. So we'll continue going down the items and the operating budget, please.
130, hold on. Okay, 135 Assessor, 136 Board of Assessment Appeals, 139 Tax Collector, 140 Law Department, 150 Town Clerk's Office, 161 P&Z Board of Appeals / zoning.
Yes, I have a change here to delete 107,526 from the Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals zoning inspector. Do I have a second?
Second.
The department will be the subject of a pilot AI program that will be instituted by the IT department, which may alleviate the issues identified by planning and zoning as a primary reason for requesting the additional headcount, decreased counter time needed for the inspectors during work time. Also, the department could utilize an FAQ approach to answer the most frequently asked questions by individuals and link some of the answers to the forums or departments that are part of the question. And I would just say this really relates to having smart forms on the web that we all see every day in our regular lives, and they need to just be brought forward on that, and the IT department's going to help them. Mrs. Tarkington?
I would like to add here, I believe that the number should be 74,551, but I'm going to ask our budget director. I just want to make sure we're doing the correct number, amount.
I took the number from the requests, but it could be that they included benefits. Okay, that's why the
Okay,
discrepancy.
so
I'm sorry.
a correction to 74,551, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Are you going to, you're fine with that?
yes, and Karen's fine with it. Yep.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yep.
yes.
Okay, any discussion on this? Ms. Moriarty, please.
I don't want to extend this meeting any longer than I have to, but I know that this board has been hearing for a number of years of the lack of enforcement of overcrowding, of illegal apartments, of blight ordinances. And so the changes you're talking about, which are not yet implemented, it's not yet clear exactly how they would affect the department, I don't think negates the need.
Yeah, Ms. Fascilotis, please.
Okay, I think we all agree that the zoning inspectors do important work in town. But in the course of the budget deliberations, the P&Z director presented the position to the HR committee and explained that zoning inspectors are currently manning the desk, which prevents them from going out to the field and doing their jobs. The issue is that there was not a defined metric of what the department is trying to address with this position. There is not a defined problem and no solution. It appears that this is more a counter problem that the department has. Other departments, such as the building department, have put procedures in place to help, such as scheduling building. The building department, for example, schedules building inspections to close out permits online, and they also have a frequently asked question page. We also learned that IT will be piloting a new software application at the counter using AI to hopefully help with that problem. So hopefully going forward, that will alleviate the counter problems. And I also urge the department to look at coming up with frequently asked questions. When we asked the question, they directed us to a site, but that just didn't seem to do the job.
Further discussion? Yes, Mr. Kalb.
Sorry, waiting for my mic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, on this particular matter, I just note that from my constituents in town or from residents in town, I've heard numerous complaints about the difficulty in getting planning and zoning inspectors out to properties if they have a problem. I myself have had this same situation. I had a water drainage issue from neighboring properties, and after weeks I was able to get some response, but even then couldn't get the people to come out. It's very, very frustrating. I think that I went to the office, it's very clear that they are understaffed. So I'm really glad that we're actually going to be doing an IT program. I think that'll help. I think having a better FAQ website will also help. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about is bodies on the ground, and I do think that these guys they're really understaffed. And if we're going to be responsive to town people's needs, I think it would be nice to have an extra person there, or I should say, I think we need another person there. A need, not a nice to have. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Alchek?
I like a lot of the things that are in here, and I could support this if you were willing to add a dashboard item on tracking how we're doing. In other words, what's the backlog? How many days does it take? I applaud as my colleague Mr. Kalb just mentioned, the things that we're doing here, using AI, et cetera. And that's great if that alleviates the problem. I'm sort of channeling my colleague, Ms. Jansen, who I know is an advocate of using data. And so if we were to track how we're doing, that would help us determine whether we really do need another person.
I absolutely agree with you. I don't think that there's any question that there should be tracking if there isn't already, and maybe we can get them on a quarterly basis to give us a report.
Ms. Jansen, please.
Give it a minute. Nope.
Looks like maybe a battery.
Your battery may be gone.
Or is it on? No.
They have a box of batteries over there.
It's not on.
Maybe there's a message there.
There you go.
All right, I'll be brief. I sit on the HR committee, and trying to understand the nature of the bottleneck, because it was described as a counter problem. I did collect a lot of the data around the metrics to the current problem, and it was not defined. It was also not defined what is considered an acceptable, happy end point. So I agree with you, Elliot, that a dashboard would be wonderful. I don't know if the BET has that purview to add, but I think it would be a very good feature to the application that is being implemented on a pilot basis.
Ms. Tarkenton?
So I did read all the data that was provided, including the additional data. I was disappointed because I think zoning enforcement is needed, that the data provided really looked like nuisance kind of issues, and it was over an extended period of time, and I agree that the dashboard would be an excellent addition. I also think having a zoning enforcement officer who truly understands the issues being raised and conditions on planning and zoning decision letters is also desperately needed. But perhaps that's a different function. But I think that the HR committee should really understand the job descriptions for the position.
Any further discussion?
So would you be willing to add a sentence in here saying we will endeavor to get a dashboard item that will track how we're doing with respect to providing that service, providing the P&Z service?
I have no problem.
I have no problem with that.
There's nothing.
Have you got something written that works? Just hold on for a second, please.
How about, we will endeavor to get a dashboard item to track the counter, or, P&Z Board of Appeals zoning. We'll endeavor to get a dashboard item to track the counter,
Productivity.
productivity. How is that?
Does that sound good? Okay, that's
Okay.
acceptable to me. Karen writes it as acceptable, so I think we can all move forward to a vote. Does anybody object to unanimous consent here? Okay, we're going to have a roll call vote then, please.
Okay. Alfano? Cobb?
Pass.
Jansen? Weisbrod?
No.
Moriarty?
No.
Tarkington?
Fisher, yes.
Vasiliotis, yes. Salps?
Abstain.
Aurora?
Yes.
DeChamp?
No.
Alcheck?
Yes.
And
back
who
to-
passed? Cobb?
Cal.
No.
Okay, so it's 1, 2, 7 yeses, 3 noes, and 1 abstention. Oh, is that right? Yes.
No, that doesn't add up.
7. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think you had 4
4
noes.
noes. Yep, sorry. 4 noes, 1 abstention.
Right, okay, that item passes.
Okay, let me just write that down. 7, 4, 1. And the noes are Champ. 1 second. I'm just catching up. Priority. Weisberg, Cobb, and Selps.
No,
Abstain.
David's going to second.
Okay, moving on. We have a budget amendment that was submitted by Roland, and,
Wait a minute, no, you need to keep going down the,
oh, I'm sorry, I was in the book, that's why I'm just
yeah, I'm sorry.
looking
So
at
you're
it.
looking at 170
Firefighting
condemnation.
uniform. Yeah, but where's the adjustments for this? There's an adjustment.
That's fire.
No. Yeah, adjustment. That's for fire?
That's for fire.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
170 Condemnation Commission, 171 Planning and Zoning Commission, 172 Conservation Commission, 173 Inland Wetlands, 1 word, and Watercourse, 1 word, 174 Land Use Administration, 195 Commission on Aging, Fire Department, 201 Administration. Is that where this goes? Account
Roland, where do you want this to go, this admission for the fire
205.
contract?
It's 205. 205.
Because- oh, I'm sorry,
202.
there's 2 numbers there.
202 Fire Training, 204 Office of the Fire Marshal, 205 Firefighting Force.
Okay, we have an amendment here to 205-51010 in the amount of 102,000, 51330 in the amount of 105,000, for a total of 207,000. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Alfano. The 2024-25 budget was prepared before the fire contract was prepared. The budget assumed a 2.5% increase compared to the proposed contract expected to be approved by the RTM increase of 2.75%, so 2.75 versus 2.5. In addition to the salary increase, the uniform allowance was increased by $1,000 per person. So hence an addition of a total of $207,000. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, is there any objection to unanimous consent? Seeing none, I ask for unanimous consent. Any objection to unanimous consent for approval of this addition? Seeing none, this is a 12-0-0 approval. Thank you. Now I have firefighting force.
Yeah, it's the same one,
Yep.
so.
Okay, so I have an amendment for the Fire Department firefighting force 205-5110, which is the overtime line, in the amount of $637,500, which is a condition and subject to release of 25% of the total overtime appropriation. Do I have a second?
Second.
No,
Mr. Weisbrod.
I second.
Mr. Weisbrod seconds, thank you. This is a condition on receipt of report in December 2024 on the status of turnover of personnel and impact on overtime and efforts to reduce overtime. Report to include a forecast of use of overtime funds for the balance of the fiscal year, subject to release at the January 2025 BET meeting based on acceptance of the above report. Is there any discussion of this? I would just note that this has been discussed with the fire chief, who supports this. Is there any objection to unanimous consent? Is there unanimous consent to approve the condition and subject to release as outlined? Any objection? Seeing none, this is 12-0-0. Thank you.
206, fire apparatus and equipment. 207, fire department buildings. 208, fire department volunteers.
This was not,
You're down at uniform patrol, I think.
oh, we didn't need to change anything here. Never mind, sorry.
No, you don't.
So you're down to the police department.
Police department, 211, administration. 212, dispatch townwide communication. 213, general services. 216, criminal investigation. 217, uniform patrol.
Yes, I have a similar one here as to the fire department, which is the amount of $551,000, a condition and subject to release, which represents 25% of the total overtime appropriation. Second?
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Weisbrod. And this reads the same. Condition on receipt of a report in December 2024 on the status of turnover of personnel and impact on overtime and efforts to reduce overtime. Report to include forecasts on the use of overtime funds for the balance of the fiscal year. Subject to release at the January 2025 BET meeting based on acceptance of the above report. And I note this has been discussed with Chief Eby and has his support. Any discussion? Seeing none, is there any objection to unanimous consent? Nope. So is there any objection to unanimous approval of this condition? Seeing no objection, this is adopted 12-0-0. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, Public Works, 301, Administration. 302, Engineering Division. 312, Highway, Streets and Bridges. 315, Highway BOE Maintenance. 321, Waste Disposal Division. 345, Building Construction and Maintenance. 351, Building Inspection Division. Vehicle Maintenance, 380 Fleet Department. Health, 401 Administration. 405 Environmental Health. 410 Special Clinical Services. 415 Family Health. 425 Laboratory.
Excuse me. Yes, Ms.
I'm
Moriarty.
sorry that this is going back to fleet. I just want to make a comment on the fleet budget. Because we have reduced the capital appropriation for new vehicles, I would expect there's going to be a required increase in the fleet department. Either vehicles aren't going to be available, or they may have an increase in maintenance, overtime, or parts. We don't know the number now. I'm just alerting the board when this was done before that was one of the outcomes.
Okay, thank you. Continuing.
External entities, 440.
I have a condition on TAG, and it's on the $308,000 budget.
I second.
The condition is subject to release by the Board of Estimate and Taxation upon receipt and acceptance by the BET of a semi-annual report from TAG respecting its operations, personnel, and finances. I'll also add this is similar to the condition that we have on TAG this year. When this current fiscal year, we stepped to semi-annual from quarterly.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any objection to adopting by unanimous consent? Any objection to the motion or the subject to release? Hearing no objection, it is adopted 12-0-0. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Human Services, 501 Administration, 502 Adult and Family Services, 509 Aging Services, Homemaker Services, Board of Education. I can run through all of them, but we have, let me just go through 600 Administration, 620 instruction, 640 operation of plants, 650 maintenance of plants, 660 pupil transportation, 675 student body activities. I do have a reduction to the entire budget, not specific to a line, that was handed to you. I'm moving the reduction of $2,441,442 from the Board of Education budget. Do you have a second?
I will second that for the purpose of discussion.
Okay. The explanation here is with this reduction, the Board of Ed will have a growth of $8 million in annual appropriated expenses, the largest increase, and still allow for inflation-adjusted level services. The BET cannot direct where spending reductions could be achieved. It's up to the BOE to make those decisions. However, there are some suggested areas that the BOE will look at, and I will talk a little bit more about those. Okay, so the $8 million increase that the BET guidelines allow for is a record increase, by the way. They've also asked for an additional $2.4 million more for a series of increases in expanded programs, yet unfortunately, I don't believe that they've been able to demonstrate how they improve the outcomes for our students. This board agreed that the 4.3% increase to the BOE budget in our guidelines funds every program and makes sure that every teacher in the system gets their contractual raises. Tony Jones doesn't need to cut teachers or programs with the increase our guidelines give schools. But that's still not enough. She's asking us to expand the school budget by $2.4 million on top of what is being done now. And why is that? We've learned, for example, that $800,000 more is being asked for because the district can't get teachers into classrooms. We even heard it from a student at the budget hearing this past Monday. In the course of our budget deliberations, we heard that one Friday, the school district had 120 teachers not come to work. My understanding is that there are 190 elementary school classrooms. By my math, about half of elementary school classes didn't have their regular teacher. Put another way, they didn't have learning continuity. There is a pattern when the district has 120 uncovered classrooms. It's half the elementary school classrooms. Every other elementary school classroom in the entire district that's over 15 schools. I'm really not sure how you can run a district that way. And what's the BET response in this budget? Reward this by throwing more money at the problem, $800,000. The answer cannot be that. Throwing money at a management problem is not the answer. This is a management problem, not a money problem. But we don't seem to care about that today. There has also been an increase in the number of teachers despite a decrease in enrollment. From 214 to the current budget, the school district has added 33 teachers but reduced classes by 20. That leaves 31 teachers out of classroom. That means 31 teachers are floating around the district. We also, despite what the district may claim, have a lot of excess capacity in our school system. Our schools were built for 11,000 kids, and we now have 8,300 kids. The school system is sized well above the 216 level of kids, which was our long-term historical average. The issue is that the surprise increase noted by the BOE, my Democratic colleagues and others, and decline in enrollment are unevenly distributed. Some schools, as we know, are running at capacity. North Mianus and Riverside are an example. While others with extra space, Coscob and North Street, and then there's lots and lots of extra space in Parkway and even Julian Curtis. And yet this BET, instead of calling for a district-wide capacity optimization plan, rewards the district for failing to do that study with more money. And when Tony Jones added 11 teachers with the American Rescue Plan Fund, she did so with the understanding that when the funds ran out, these positions would go away. She said it, she promised it in a public meeting to both the BOE and the BET. Yet today, as I sit here, this BET has said promises don't matter, we'll fund it anyway. We've also learned that teachers are being hired above the midpoint salary, which costs us more money. We have heard that there is a teacher shortage and that the district can't find certified teachers. Well, here's a thought. The Board of Ed and Tony Jones can consider taking action by pairing with Western and Central Connecticut State Universities and UConn to make Greenwich the employer of choice for new hires. Has anybody thought of that in the Board of Ed? I can go on, transportation, special education costs and settlements. There's plenty of opportunity for the Board of Ed to reduce spending if they will only roll up their sleeves and do the work. So it's frustrating when this BET rewards the BOE for not doing the work they should be doing. This BET in our guidelines funded an $8 million increase over last year's budget. That is the largest increase ever. Yet despite this, and despite the issues I just raised, and I'm sure there are much more that I have not mentioned that could be looked at to reduce the budget, that's not enough. We hear the voters, I hear the voters, protect core academic programs, athletics, arts, and special education. Our guidelines do just that. I'm all in on funding that, and our guidelines do just that. But what is lost in all of this is that despite the increases that the BET has given through the years, there has been no improvement in student achievement. And that is perhaps the biggest tragedy of all. It is clear that more money does not result in better outcomes for our kids, and that can't be blamed on a lack of funding. We pay the highest salaries and we have the highest cost per student in the state for our peer school districts. Something is not right here. It's obvious to me that the BOE can make a lot of decisions that don't impact the classroom. We can and will fund the $8 million increase, but the extra $2.5 million that has made this budget should not be funded by this BET. There are opportunities for efficiencies. I can't tell the BOE where those efficiencies are, but surely the BOE can find them. I simply have noted areas that they can look to, but it is all ultimately up to them.
I've been calling for a reduction in the Board of Ed budget, so I will be supporting this. Is there any other discussion, please? I'm sorry, it is working. I've been talking about a 2.4 reduction to the Board of Ed for weeks now. So Karen, had not made up my mind till I wanted to come to this meeting firmly, but I am going to support Karen's motion. I think there are a lot of inefficiencies and corrections and management issues that can be done that are beyond even what she's spoken of. Any other discussion? Ms. Moriarty, please.
Okay, I am speaking to deaf ears, that most of you have made up your minds. But I think it is important for the public to hear what the impact of a reduction of $2.4 million on this budget would be. If you do it in teachers and staffing, that gets you to 24 teachers. 24 teachers cannot, or something a little less than that, 20. We're talking about a significant impact on the budget. We saw the Board of Ed's own budget committee grapple with the budget that was out there and could not find significant savings to the budget. Much of the information that Ms. Vasiliotis shared just shows a lack of understanding of the changing of education. First of all, let me just talk about capacity in our schools. Our buildings are built for 11,000 students back 50 years ago. Education is different today. The size of the classrooms are mandated to be higher. The mandates from the state regarding special education needs, specialized programs, are greater than they were before. It reduces rooms from general education classrooms and it creates capacity issues. Yes, our families do not move in logical blocks to classrooms, but our community has spoken out that they value neighborhood schools. As far as looking at achievement scores, it's a tough thing to look at, right? Our district is diverse. We have students at all level of the scale, both economically, both high needs kids with special education needs, English language learners. And so looking at and the percentage of those kids as a percent of the total population changes every year. So it makes it difficult on an aggregate basis to be able to say we haven't achieved. We also have had the impact of COVID. COVID nationwide has impacted achievement for kids across the country, and our kids within the state have outperformed, I believe, most other districts, if not all districts, in academic performance, and the education loss is minimized within the Greenwich. This is again using a club that this BET has used in multiple areas within this budget. But the impact on this is reduced programming. Absolutely, the kids are going to feel this cut. I don't believe there are enough items which were identified by their budget committee to get even close to this kind of number in terms of a reduction of operations. This is irresponsible. I think it doesn't meet the community need. This board has the obligation for public safety and public education, and you're failing our families.
Further discussion? Mr. Kalb, and then Mr. Deschamps.
Thank you. So I just want to, dig into the numbers a little for a second. I think the budget last time was 182 million. With supplemental, it was about 184. The BOE actually originally asked for a budget of 194, so about a 10 million increase. And our guideline was for 190.2. They asked for 194.2. So they then went back and they did some cuts. They already removed 6 teachers from Greenwich High School. They already moved a number of positions. They made some cuts. They've come back with a request for a budget of 192.6. So to me, it's interesting that this request just takes the overall BOE budget just back to the guideline that we set. So it seems to me like it's a little bit of reverse engineering. I also note that there have been some changes in the laws regarding special education. We are now required to provide special education by law, and a lot of the increases have to do with an increase in the number of special ed teachers. So I don't deny that there are that there are things that could be addressed at the Board of Education. I've seen it. We've had our committee meetings. There's no question. It's a huge operation. But I do know that if given a $2.4 million cut, I think that this is like a nuclear bomb that's being dropped on our education department. And I think that we'll get people up in arms. I just don't think this is responsible. I don't think that the Board of Ed can handle this kind of a cut right at this juncture. So I agree, there are some messy things that need to be addressed. I would urge my colleagues here, if they want to make a cut to the Board of Education, that they think about what number is possible, is reasonable. I don't think a 2.4 million seems to me just to get back to what our guideline number was, which is, is just that. It's a guideline. It's not a cap. So I would urge my colleagues to rethink this number. I think it's a devastating number that will have severe consequences, and it's just something that I don't think I can support.
Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say this is an extremely disappointing motion to be reading today. If you look at some of the numbers, and I want to go through the numbers again because they were articulated by Ms. Moriarty and Mr. Kalb, but just to look at one, because it's mentioned specifically as a reason. It says overtime costs due to excessive teacher absenteeism. I just want to walk you through some numbers I did the other day on this, on that specific issue. Because I was in the Budget Committee meeting when that point was raised, and there's a lot of issues around absenteeism. It's not as obvious as it sounds. 2018-2019 substitute budget, 1.22 million. Cost per sub for substitution teachers from that time frame went up 37%. So using the same utilization mechanism, you get a $1.7 million cost. It's budgeted for 1.9. So doing the math there quickly, you're talking about a $200,000 excessive absenteeism amount. But what's driving that cost is not necessarily excessive absenteeism per se, but the rising costs of labor due to shortages of absentee teacher that are available. And so when we look at when we make these comments like, well, there's excessive absenteeism in teachers, there may be, the numbers have gone up with respect to absenteeism, but what's driving that number is really labor costs. That's what's driving it. So to suggest that we can just cut $2,441,442 from the budget, which is a blunt instrument approach, to a budget that was approved by a bipartisan Board of Education and thoroughly vetted by them, and as Mr. Cal mentioned, revisited. And by the way, as I recall, that budget was originally formulated without guidance by this board, which is atypical. Then they went back, after guidance was subsequently provided, late, and cut further. So the question that we should ask ourselves, and I don't think, and it was admitted by, I believe, Ms. Tarkington, nobody knows what the implications to programming are going to be for a $2.441442 million cut. Nobody on this committee knows. We're going to go back to them and say, make the cuts. What we do know is it's going to come out of programs. And I'm sure there are parents and students all across Greenwich really concerned about what this cut's going to mean to their experience in the Greenwich Public School system. This is not the right approach. It is a blunt instrument. It is just designed to force a cut onto a Board of Education and onto a budget that has a process and that is dealing with a series of mandates that are required for special education, granted, that need to be funded. We have a growing special education need population in our schools. And there's been a lot of discussion about utilization of schools. I've done the analysis on that, looking at data that was provided to us by Prada. And it is mythical to think that there's some kind of magical optimization that can occur here. Most of the schools are at 80–90% capacity, and using that own data, you see that they will be at full capacity over the next several years. And I'm happy to provide that analysis to this board that will show that. And that is data that has been provided and is readily available, and I've done the work on that. To suggest that there are all these cuts that occur without any impact on programming is misguided. This will affect programming. It will affect the students that we're responsible for. And it's extremely disappointing yet again that I have to see something like this being put forth as such a blunt instrument.
Ms. Tarkington, followed by Mr. Selps.
So one of the things I'd like to do is just talk through you to a couple of my colleagues.
Okay.
First, to Mr. Deschamps, I did turn to Ms. Moriarty and said, did I say what he's saying that he attributed to me? And she said, no, it was to the other Leslie, Ms. Moriarty. So I just want to correct that in that. And then the other thing is Scott mentioned that this, he didn't think he could support this amount and, whatever, but it implied that he might consider a lower amount. And so I would, I don't necessarily want him to respond to me, but it would be interesting to hear if he could consider something else. I'd also like to add that our cost just of the schools and the benefits are $240 million. And too frequently, we only refer to the wages part of the compensation for our school system and not the employees, and I'll say X the teachers, cost of total compensation. That's $240 million in our budget. I think that most people who know me know that I've been a long-time supporter of neighborhood schools. I truly, it's critically important to me. And our neighborhoods in general are important to me. But I think it is high time that we look at where even minor redistricting can help us. We know that Old Greenwich will be adding 4 classrooms. They will need that for their swing space as they do their construction. but maybe a little bit, we hear about overages in Riverside, maybe a little bit of minor redistricting might help that issue. And, the next thing is the budget itself. I am quite concerned. This is $2,441,000 over budget guidelines. And I know their budget guidelines are only a guideline. However, I do think that the budget committee of the BOE needs to take much more scrutiny of the expenses within their own organization and, come up with better ideas, but really get a better understanding of where they spend money, because quite frankly, I don't know what the right amount of money to take out of this is, but somehow it needs to be more rationalized. And I know that these businessmen who talk about this know that in their own businesses, they're building up, understanding the expenses, and I'm afraid that there's, that's not being done sufficiently. Again, when we see this come in, we have to remember that we have many taxpayers in this town that may not be as influenced and as affluent as many on this BET are, and that we've got 30% Alice families in this town, asset limit, income compromised. We have a very large number of free and reduced lunch, et cetera, et cetera. We need to think about our budget and the final costs as we approach the final funding of this, and where and what should we have done in terms of either reducing our expenses or increasing our revenues. And quite frankly, as I think Pete and Roland can tell you, I explored, are there any opportunities to for improved revenues? And I think both feel strongly, and I respect this, both of them, that there is no such opportunity. So this is a very difficult decision for me to make, and I'd just like to, say that. But I would like to ask Mr. Kolb, is there a number?
I'm sorry?
Or would you rather recess before we finish this topic?
Okay,
Yeah, I wasn't offering a number, but I think we need a recess.
all right, there's a request for caucus, so we will take a break for caucus. Leslie Moriarty and I will text each other when ready. Okay. Call us back to order at 6:13. And we have a motion on the floor in regard to the schools. So we're continuing discussion. Would you like to be recognize Ms. Moriarty for discussion?
So we know that our caucus has taken a long time to review and discuss this change, but the more that we looked at this magnitude of a change, we realized that it is important for all board members to understand what the real impact on the department would be. It is a significant change to their operation. We think that not only should we talk to the department about the change, but also the bipartisan Board of Ed, which voted in favor of this budget. In order to do that, we believe this body should adjourn and reconvene at a future date. So I am making a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second the motion.
I don't think that's a great idea. Can we at least all express?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. O'Rourke.
Yeah. And maybe that'll change Miss Moriarty's perspective. I'll just say, I was I'm sorry. I personally was a little disappointed. I must admit that when this motion was made, Ms. Moriarty, you started your comments by saying, this is going to, my thoughts are probably going to fall on deaf ears, and you had not heard each of our perspectives. I will tell you there were at least a few of us on this board that were ready to support this Board of Ed budget as presented. And we were not all on board with that cut. So the fact that we adjourned for 2 hours in the hopes that, Mr. Calab offered a compromise, and we thought there was going to be some level of compromise, and I thought maybe, in the spirit of bipartisanship, that you would encourage your caucus. Looks like we didn't get there. All of that being said, there are still a few of us on this board that are committed to keeping this budget whole with the hopes that there is more cooperation these next couple of years as we continue to work together and continue to work on this budget. There's lots of rooms for improvement, but I do want to make that statement very public that, I think it's unfortunate that we couldn't have gotten to a better compromising position, considering, it was made by your caucus, or a thought was made by the member of your caucus.
Yes, this is to follow on, because I am not supporting the cut, and I wasn't supporting the cut, and I agree with my colleague that it was premature to say that there were deaf ears, that we were unanimous in supporting this cut, because that wasn't the case. And the reason why I'm not for the cut is because I did, as most of the time I watched the Board of Ed deliberations, there were attempts to reduce the budget. The Board of Ed ended their discussions saying that it was still premature, and they have a budget committee, and they committed to look at ongoing areas of inefficiency or duplication or areas for reduction. And so that factored into my decision. I also wanted to continue to fully fund the ability to reach the strategic goals as defined by the Board of Ed. They're the strategic 2027 goals. When the achievement data came out for 2022-23, every one of the metric goals that was defined by the Board of Ed was missed. 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th, 8th, and the SAT, all missed. So the goal here is to continue this funding so that we address the achievement goals as defined by the Board of Ed. The other area that I wanted to address by fully funding this request by the Board of Ed was the chronic absenteeism. The student chronic absenteeism as well as the teacher. In the perspective of the student, it's very much the expert opinion. The more that a student is not in the classroom, the more they miss the achievement levels. So this chronic absenteeism was funded in order to get, this Board of Ed budget was funded in order to get this area addressed as well. So once again, my interest in supporting the full funding was because the Board of Ed strategic goals have a certain outline, certain funding levels, and that's what I'm expecting is improved by next fiscal year as they had expressed in their meeting.
Leslie wants to talk to you. Ms. Tarkenton?
So I do not support, and I'll be voting no against the motion to adjourn. I think we have a job to complete. I think we've spent 2 days. I thought we were getting close, and I would hope that the business of this board could get done before the long weekend and maybe people leaving town. I'm shocked that you would come in and say that after, maybe Pete can tell us when we broke. It was around 3:45, Pete? I don't know. Anyway, I think Samantha, around then, but happy to, 2.5 hours ago. And certainly with the expectation that we would complete our work for the taxpayers of Greenwich this evening.
You want to speak, Karen?
No, I'm also not in favor of adjourning. I'm disappointed in my 2 colleagues, and I will address that later when we take the vote on the item.
Yeah, let's do the vote.
Don't we have an open agenda? How can just make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we can,
Motion to adjourn. So they're just.
we had a motion
We
on
had
the
an open
table.
motion on the floor. How can
I'm
you
not-
make a
I'm not
motion to
sure.
adjourn?
No, I'm not making a motion. I'm simply saying we have a motion on the floor to adjourn. It's been seconded.
Can I ask my colleague who's made the motion to adjourn to withdraw her motion and take the vote for issue at hand before?
Can I just ask a question for clarification?
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, sorry.
all right.
So I'm a little confused. I just want to make sure I understand correctly. So, Ms. Aurora, Ms. Jansen, I very much appreciate your comments. And if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is you are not going to vote for removing the 2.4 million out of the budget.
Correct.
Okay, okay. I appreciate that clarification. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I heard that correctly.
I do think it's important to take this vote before we adjourn or not adjourn. I think it's this is the most important
well-
vote. A lot of the community is expecting it, so I would really respectfully ask.
We can,
colleagues.
we may need to do a little discussion again. I mean, look, the chaos of this caucus, you come in with the chairman of your caucus comes in to second the motion to cut $2.4 million. And then we hear it's just a joke, that there's no. I know you don't agree, but so
That's
wait a
out of
second.
order, Mr. Weisbrot,
So,
please.
no, for 2 hours, we've been working hard to try to figure out how to deal with this extremely radical change, only to come back in. Now, look, this meeting was called as the second day of a meeting with an end point at 4 o'clock. I think we're all weary, we're all tired, and we're not going to all be able to make the best decisions. This process has been completely chaotic from the beginning, unnecessarily so. And so I think, I suggest that we have a 3-minute recess to figure out this new turn of events, which we didn't know about before.
Is the motion to adjourn?
This is a 3-minute recess. I think 3-minute recess. We'll step out into the hall for 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah. Give us 3 minutes, okay? Give us 3 minutes.
We're checking Robert's Rules of Order in addition.
I don't think it is either.
I'm pretty sure you can.
Right, you can't do a motion after a motion.
That's my point. I mean, that's like basic Robert's rules.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Stephen.
You can't introduce a new motion until you dispose of a pending motion.
Right, that's what I thought.
I mean, you can do it by consent, but it's not Robert's rules.
It's not Robert's Rules. Yeah, thank you.
I hear you, I hear you.
Where'd Lucia go?
Yeah, six, and, you know, that's your motion. If 6 and it fails, they can't adjourn.
Right, I understand. But they could always walk out.
Yeah, and you won't have a quorum.
Won't have a quorum.
Right.
Because it'll be a 6-6 vote or fail. Then they'll just,
Well, you know what, when they did that to me in the budget committee, I didn't walk out on them. Should I remind them, Pete? Leslie, she'll remember.
it's almost like you should adjourn just to let everything calm down.
But we'd have to go to the 8th of April.
Not an issue, right?
We're on TV?
Okay.
I'll have to buy you guys drinks one day, just to.
No, it's a privileged motion. The motion to adjourn is privileged.
You can consider it.
You can consider it.
Wait, told me not to.
They told me not to.
You and I. Oh, right. It's the
me
same
not to.
You can consider
They told me
the
the same thing.
motion
Dick Scott,
to
they're like,
adjourn.
no, that's the same thing.
That's right.
You're thinking the same thing. No, I did.
Okay, can we come back into session? I guess we have a motion to adjourn on the table, unless it's withdrawn.
I will withdraw the motion.
Okay, the motion to adjourn is withdrawn, so we are. Okay, the proposer and seconder are withdrawn, thank you. So we're back to the motion that's previously on the table from Karen. Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none, I'm sorry, Mr. Alfano, I couldn't quite see.
Thank you, Harry. So I'm not in favor of this cut, and one of the reasons is I don't believe it's our job as a BET to cut this. I think the Board of Ed is responsible, and it's my hope in the future Board of Eds that they will make the necessary cuts, which did not happen this time. I had good communication with some of the Republican Board of Ed members, and it just didn't happen. But that's my hope for the future.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Oh, Ms. Vasiliotis, please.
I, for one, am disappointed in my colleagues. I understand what their reasoning is, and I just don't think that that's the responsible way of governing. I think there are plenty of places, and even the Board of Ed has identified plenty of places where they can reduce and save money. They've chosen not to do that, and in fact, they've said it's not our job to do, it's up to the BET to do. So I'm not really happy with the outcome, and I appreciate my colleagues' voices, and I'm disappointed that something couldn't have been done tonight.
No. She's not. Okay, with that, I would ask that you call the roll, please.
Alfano? Alfano? No. DeChamp? Oh, I'm sorry, Cal.
Thank you.
I went
No.
to the top of the list there.
No.
Jansen?
No.
Weisbrod?
No.
Moriarty?
No.
Tarkington?
Fisher, yes.
Vasiliotis, yes. Selps?
No.
Where am I? Aurora?
No.
DeChamp?
No.
Allcheck?
No.
So it makes it
That fails 291.
291, the motion fails. So we'll continue going down. I'm sorry, Ms. Moriarty?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is very late in the evening. Several of my members, one, have commitments this evening, obligations, and really don't have the bandwidth. Some of us don't have the bandwidth after what this day has been, and yesterday has been, to continue, unfortunately. So I am looking for agreement on a rescheduling to finish this budget another day.
I second that.
Well, I was waiting to hear, but I will make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
I give you a twist.
I was on the, I'll tell you a story about the penny.
Well, I'll tell you, it,
I don't have my calendar.
yeah,
I forgot my
it-
calendar.
No, I understand, I
Steve
understand. I mean, I think.
Yes, Mr. Sells, please.
Yeah, I'm quite sorry, and I'm mindful of my obligations to my colleagues, but I'm the one she's talking about. I was not anticipating that we'd be working into this evening, and I have business commitments that start at 7 o'clock, and I apologize. This was just somewhat unanticipated to me, and I promise you that I will make myself available for an adjourned session, but I'm out of time for this day.
Okay. I understand that you're out all next week. Just for the benefit of the people watching this, we're trying to figure out when we could adjourn and start a new meeting.
Mr. Chairman, if I could be excused, I will cooperate for the next meeting, but I really.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Selps. Well, I mean, if you're gonna be out, we've got scheduling conflicts next week we've already discussed.
Away the week after.
You're away the week after.
Yep, I'm around next week. I'm afraid I'm away the week after.
April 9th, you got an HR meeting.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair, I will make myself available at the discretion of the chair as it may work. As it may work.
I didn't hear. What did he say? I
Mr.
didn't hear.
What, Weistrod? He'll make himself available as needed. I mean, it really falls to you,
I
Leslie.
can't after the 11th. Can you give us
So, I mean, what are the days that do you know your caucus's schedule? What days your guys are
I can't do
available?
the second. I'm not sure the rest of the week. I possibly do the third. but
Are you guys all available?
I left my calendar on my, I was
Leslie, you
gonna
wanna take
bring
1
it.
minute?
You'll have to have to bring.
Yeah. And then everybody was like, where are you?
All right,
Yeah, that,
No, we have not.
we have not. I'm sorry,
Can I
what?
say something? I was thinking if we can do it
We're
without
just comparing schedules.
We'll just stay
We
here.
can stay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Harry, can we discuss this a little bit, or is this like, because I have to tell you, when we extend this out, the RTM has that much less.
We're trying to not do that, so.
Oh, okay.
They're gonna go see if we can do it with 11 of us.
Okay, 'cause- thank you, thank you.
All right, so you think the third, but you're not sure.
I know I'm rescheduling
This
that.
is horrible for RTM.
Next week, you could make it work.
I can always move my appointments around.
You can always
April
move.
15th, yeah, let's move them all around.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm totally flexible.
Nisha, how are you next week? You're pretty flexible, good. And Lucia, you
other Karen.
Harry, could I be, I was going to say,
Oh, here they are. We have to confirm it. Can we come back into session to deal with the final matter, please, tonight?
so if it could be 11, I think usually, but if not,
Yeah,
you got problems with, I get it.
yeah.
I just need to.
Excuse me, Samantha, yes?
Yeah, why don't you do that
Yeah.
right now?
We're going to check the calendar to see if there's a room available for our target date.
Sure, we could.
Looking now.
Yes, Wednesday at, let's say 10:30.
Yeah, it's the,
It's the day after the primary.
primary, so it would have to be up here.
No, they have both rooms.
Oh, they have both of them? Oh.
This room also? What about this room?
This is probably where we're doing the absentee ballots. I'm sorry? Right.
I'm okay with Zoom.
Well, I mean, it doesn't take away for the motion to adjourn, we can adjourn tentatively to Wednesday, and then we can figure it out.
Okay, I'd like to entertain I'm not sure if we have a motion to adjourn on the table, but I'd take we do?
Yes, there was.
Confirming a motion to adjourn.
And Mr. Weisbrot has seconded. Any objection to unanimous consent? Hearing none. It's an affirmative of 11:00. Mr. Selps had to leave the meeting. 11:00 to adjourn the meeting at 6:43.